Okay, hello everybody. My name is Alexander. I did a residency here in October and also a bit in September, as I remember. And this was about creating an audio walk for the Fabriek to make the sounds of the Fabriek, the sounds the building makes, experienceable throughout Eindhoven. And before I tell about the actual project, I wanted to introduce myself a bit and tell you how I got here, so to speak. This is a photo. I always say like this is the photo where my artistic career kind of started with. It's a heap of lime or chalk in some field in north of Germany, and I just photographed it, and eventually it became kind of the theme image of my graduation work in architecture at the Technical University in Berlin. It was a project was called Metaphysics of Architecture, and it was about the, I always say the formal dialectics or the analogies between architectural formal expression and architecture. So, for example, columns and trees, or interiors and caves, or building and mountain. This kind of relationships I showed in this work. And I have a little work for you from that body of work, which also had sculpture and models and other things. But this is a little video work or a dia show called Il Momento Metafisico, where I tried, like the metaphysic moment, where I tried to look at things and not to label them like a column, but just like try, which is like really difficult to do, but like this first moment you see an object and you don't categorize, you just see it and you look at not so much what it is, but how it is. So I show you that movie. So as I said, this was kind of this work I did, or one of the works I did, which were dealing with like this kind of formal aspect between nature and architecture, and that there's definitely some kind of dialogue there. And then after my bachelor's, I went to the Royal Academy of Art, or actually the Royal Conservatory, where I did my master's in art science. And this is one of my works there. And after dealing with the objects, like the architectural and the natural objects and space landscapes, I was more focusing on space itself, so kind of the space surrounding us and the objects and between them. and I developed this concept of Substanzraum, which is a German word for space of substance, which means that kind of the whole global space is kind of, in my imagination, this space of substance where substances over eons of time always shifting and mingling and transform into something else. So this kind of thing that you will decay and form into soil or in other nutritions for other beings, for example. Or this table, at some point it will be completely dissolved and be the atoms will be in something else. And to visualize that, I created this work, which is also called Substanzraum, and that I also brought for you today to look at. All right, so this work was actually really to visualize this idea of space as a material, like the space we're in now, the air. It's not nothing. And to show it like with the water, so you see, like by moving through space or just speaking, you agitate the space, and just that simple fact that by moving you're just creating turbulences and alter the space by being here. Then later on, after my graduation, I did solo things and also collaborative projects. One of them was last year here at the Fabriek, together with my sister Katerina and Rick from the Sensory Threshold Lab. We created this crazy sand beach landscape upstairs. And kind of my working station was more or less this place, where we had a lot of technical equipment to work with sound. And together with Fernori and Sarah Rose Guatin Nederlof, I created this kind of sound sculpture made from plastic bags, where you can step on the ladder and then you pour water in it on top and it runs through it. Inside is a hydrophone, and the running water kind of course, agitates the hydrophone, and that kind of what the hydrophone picked up was our impulse to create a very elaborative soundscape, which already relates to this kind of theme of the Whale Song project, which is actually something which is not, now I used it as a title for the work, but there can also be in the future other works which have the same title, because it's also started a bit for me as a hashtag, actually. But we created some interesting sounds from that. I mean, it runs through a modulation machine and stuff, of course. But it's created, and it's created by also the visitors in the space, because they also talk, and then the hydrophone picks it up sometimes not, and it transforms it into winds and waves and whale sounds. That was just a little skit to show you, like, give you an idea of what is happening there. And this was actually also the moment where I, in the end of this project, experimented with this geolocated sound walks. And there's this platform, Echoes XYZ, where they offer this kind of a platform where you can make audio walks, and you can walk like on Google Maps, and then sound files are played back according to your location. And I made one walk before in The Hague at the beach. It's also funny because the route, this blue line is the route, so this audio walk the composition was also very linear, and there's also a narration to it. But yeah, eventually it turned out also to look a bit like a whale, I think. That is, I really like that aspect. And but what I found out, what I discovered during this project, working with the platform, is that there can also be maybe the possibility of having a very other way of composing. So there's no start or no end, and also that that the listener or / walker even becomes more like kind of a bit like the phenomena they emerge by the presence of the listener, and this is then where we are now with the Whale Song project and with the subtitle "The Sonic Agency of an Architecture." Because since I was here several times already, and then you know that the sound in the building is very particular, and also that the building makes sound. So there was this idea of creating a kind of, you call it, maybe you can call it like a Musik concrete audio piece. So that means that it is a composition made mostly from recorded sounds. And make a composition from the sounds the building makes. That was kind of the point, or the starting idea. Eventually, this is a bit what you see on your phone. So the walk in the end you do with your phone and your headphones. And you can walk inside these circles and activate the different recordings from the building, which I took. And then this is kind of the setup which you also find upstairs. So I kind of, with this installation upstairs, I wanted to provide you the possibility to also listen to these sounds which are very low, but through this very sensitive microphone you can hear like everything like super amplified. And then to these images with me sitting in the room, they are actually a bit giving a bit of a false impression, because actually it looked more like this. This is where I was sneaking up from behind of the building, photographing the microphone, because in my 5 days residency where I was recording the completely empty building, I had basically nothing to do because the microphone and the recorder were making the work at that moment, and I couldn't enter not to influence the recording. So basically what was for me interesting during the residency is that I had a lot of time to think and I got bored, and then out of this boredom I took my camera, which I also have, so this is also a part of my practice, or media I use, photography. And then I took actually photos from around, also from nature, and so but for this work I eventually photographed a bit the building in interesting ways. So the photographs, they also then relate to the sound work eventually. And they have, again, all these topics I already more or less touched, like this kind of dialectic also from inside and outside. And the air outside the building is also probably the air inside. This kind of relates to this Substanzraum idea. And then this kind of nature architecture dialectic that you also can see in some details where they kind of overlap and merge these two spheres. And also the topic of landscape. And this, for example, it's a bit like a riddle you can find out upstairs where I took the photos, but in the end this looks to me a bit like a snow landscape. So it's also all about perspective. Yeah, how I think that these photos relate is a bit related to my thoughts about the project eventually. So yeah, the approach for the walk was the building makes sound, let's record it and then make a composition from it. That was kind of the basic idea. And when I was working on the recordings and created the work, I found out more than that. So the project outcome, so to speak, or the conclusion is not only that the building makes sound. So the building also receives sounds. So in the recording you also hear sounds from outside the building. The building then also transforms sounds, and the building is also an environment. This is kind of this conclusion I came up with. It's a kind of environment on its own, but it's completely translucent with the landscape or the urban space, urban space. I see it a bit like potato. But it's kind of interwoven into this bigger spatial configuration. And so eventually I thought, like poetically spoken, the building it's talking, but it's also listening and interpreting. So it's receives sounds and transforms it. And and something I also had to think about was this rather philosophical game of thought, like if a tree falls in a forest and no one is around to hear it, does it make a sound? And in my opinion, definitely yes. That was it.